Welcome everyone to another episode of the Boat Princess podcast. I've got a really interesting interviewee in front of me today. Melanie Symes from Empire Marina. That's how I pronounce it. Is that correct,
That's
Melanie?
right, Nicky. Thank you. Yes, in Empire Marina.
Yeah. She has been working in this industry for a long time and she's learnt a great deal and she's shared a lot of it with us in documentary form, which we're going to talk about later. So, Melanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks ever so much, Nicky. Thanks for all the work you do. Certainly promoting women is absolutely fantastic and we definitely need it, let's face it.
No, I love it because I get to meet so many incredibly interesting people with different brains. Your brain is very much focused on sustainability and knowledge in marinas. So tell me, how did your world start? Where was your childhood and your education?
Well, I grew up in Birmingham, which is about as far from the sea as you can get. But we had a lot of sailing holidays. We spent a lot of time near the coast. My father built a boat, and so we spent plenty of time on the water. And well, it's a really derivative story. Unfortunately, I was working as a ski rep and fell in love with one of my customers. Absolutely the thing that you don't do.
Yeah.
And I then had a skiing accident, and I was based in Birmingham, just waiting for the operation to happen, but using the weekends and the odd week to go sailing with my partner then. So he was working on a super yacht, racing, which was just absolutely superb. Then he had the chance to do the ARC, part of a far bigger event that the boat was doing. So off I popped. There we go, and then we end up in the Canaries, and so that's how I got there, from the middle of the land to an island in the middle of the Atlantic.
Wow. Explain to our listeners what the ARC is.
So that's the Atlantic Rally for Cruises. It was founded by Jimmy Cornell, who has since, become a friend. He's an absolutely extraordinary character, one of the most seasoned cruisers that you'll come across, and certainly someone that I have seen inspire so many people with his knowledge, with his enthusiasm, with everything that he knows about cruising, which is very, very extensive. So that's a rally there. It has grown from strength to strength. It leaves from Gran Canaria in the Canaries every year, and it's now become a 3-departure event. So really mobilizing the city and bringing a lot of money to that marina and that city. It's particularly focused on boats that want to cross the Atlantic, have never done it before, but would like the security of cruising in company.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was great fun, absolutely great fun. In this particular case, there were super yachts and we were racing. And I don't need to tell you how marvelous sailing is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an incredible feeling, sailing, isn't it? Yeah, it's a freedom that is very hard to feel any other way. It's
all those things, the scary moments, the brown trouser moments, and the dynamic on board, and how all these things progress. It's a world in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've started your world of boating, racing, super yachts. Of course you have. So where have you gone from there?
So we ended up in Lanzarote, and my partner was setting up a business there. I fell into the marina, I think, just by dint of perhaps a natural path, and it was a superb little company that was just starting out. A married couple that were organising excursions, very similar actually to the boat that we went out on yesterday with the marina tour at the conference.
Okay, which was a catamaran,
which was a sailing catamaran,
big sailing catamaran.
That's right. But it was a very dynamic group. We were, young people from all over Europe and beyond, excitable, I suppose. And so, you just couldn't have much more fun as a young person.
Yeah.
And that grew quite remarkably, actually, in a small amount of time, from a 1-boat operation to 3. And well, you can imagine,
So that was a charter operation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And from then, I started having children. And then joined the marina per se, became part of the reception team, so welcoming boats, organising reservations. Then it became then we started receiving super yachts, which was, of course, the whole extremely glamorous. And then we started to run events, started to attract events to the marina. And I think that's where the job changed, from a receptionist to someone who is receiving and coordinating events, working with, international groups, going overseas, working with them, understanding how they operate, and then bringing the joy of bringing that event to your destination and making it work is really something that I think it's probably one of the highlights of the job that I did.
Yeah. So give me an example of one of those events.
Well, there are a few actually. So the Mini Transat was fun. It's got a very specific culture. I don't know if you know much about it. Basically, these are boats that race with an absolute minimum of communication. So they'll find themselves in the mid-Atlantic with no one to talk to. So obviously from a sort of a psychological point, it's very, very, very challenging, but it's also very exciting. So this is the start in France of a boater's career, racing career. And they are up to a sort of 80 boats or so in these. They're very small. It's a 6.5 meter boat.
Yeah.
Some of them are very fragile. In fact, we had one that came a cropper on the very sharp sort of coastline of Lanzarote in a storm. And that was, well, luckily the guy was incredibly tenacious. He held on to a piece of hull because the lifeguard couldn't get to them because he was in such shallow water.
Wow.
But he made it through the night, and then just coming to see a poor guy the next day destroyed with just parts of his boat around him and one of his bags that had been recovered. And yet, he got up, was able to reclaim something on the insurance and started again. And it's these lovely stories of individuals go beyond their capacity. They have to do every single part of their campaign by getting the money, organizing all the whole boat, everything that you need to do something like that, and train, of course. So training is quite significant. So I went to Douarnenez at the time. This was the group that were organizing the event, and they really brought me into the family. They sort of introduced me to everybody around, so I became part of the local scene. Stayed in a house with all sorts of characters. For me, very impressive, local media or national media and the whole sort of kernel of the sailing scene there. And then they showed me how they did it. It was a sort of induction into the culture of the Mini Transat. Then we worked on our destination using a sort of parrainage. So a godfather system. No, that's completely the wrong word, and in fact not a non-gendered word. You work with the local companies so that they will support an individual mini.
Yeah,
and that's what they did. So you end up including the whole community, so that when the boats actually arrive, there's a great buzz. Everybody's into it, and they're all very excited to see the boats, and they're very excited to share and welcome and talk about their destination and share the values of their destination. They gave them gifts, so it becomes from a visiting fleet to an event.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So these events were, you've kind of been thrown into this role, haven't you? You've obviously got some skills you've brought from, yourself as a person. What do you think? How do you think doing those events grew you as a person?
That's a good question. We had this discussion yesterday, actually, and I think there's something very profound about working in an international scene when you've got, and it's certainly very much a key feature of Trans-Europe. We are 80 members across 12 countries, so we get together on a regular basis and we have a chat. And when we have a chat, say there's 5 people in the room, there will inevitably be 4 or 5 different nationalities. So you all come together with a different viewpoint, a different cultural understanding, different experience. And it's not just, that sort of melting pot of ideas, that's sort of the extensiveness of that range of ideas. It's also the fact that because we all speak different languages, or perhaps English isn't the first of most, there's a lot of patience, there's a lot of, forgiving, there's a lot of understanding, desire to listen, active listening taken to a different level. And it's a very special sort of environment to be in. So very grateful for that.
Yeah. So let's just go back a bit there, because people don't yet know that you are the Secretary General for Trans-Europe Marinas. So explain to me exactly what that is for our listeners.
So Trans-Europe started about 35 years ago. The idea was to bring together small, independent, often family-run marinas around the Channel area, the English Channel between Britain and France, and protect them all and sort of boost them in light of the competitive challenge that they were facing from group marinas.
Yes.
Offering competitive prices, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's a natural response to sort of come together. So there was, promotion between all of them, and then a discounted berthing benefit given to the members. So then you start to sort of offset that challenge. And that grew and grew. So in 35 years, we're now sort of 80 members in 12 countries. And it's a group of friends more than anything. We share a lot of good practice. We get together. We have a good time. A lot of, really good fellow feeling.
So you're actually creating a group of marinas from individually owned marinas to give them that strength of power of feeling like a group, aren't you?
Yeah, and the benefits of being in a group, which we've discussed a lot at the conference over the last 2 days, consolidation of groups to strengthen the voice. Ironically, we do actually have a third of our members that are chain marinas now, but the diversity is very important. And so what they bring to the table is, the wealth of all their experience, the benefits of having all of those resources that they have to be able to take the steps that small marinas can't take by themselves. And so we work together, we share ideas, and everybody benefits.
Yeah. And as Secretary General, now that's not a term of phrase we use. It's a very European term, that Secretary General. Hey?
I don't call myself.
Is that not what because that's what you're on your LinkedIn is you're listed as. So what do you call yourself, and what is your role in that establishment?
It really is just the secretary, isn't it? I mean, I'm the only person that is paid to work for the organisation, which is mostly voluntary, as these things are. As you know, the sailing culture really promotes that and engenders that, I think, the collaborative community spirit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the paperwork, bringing things together. We're starting a new project soon, which is quite exciting. Collaborating or learning from the associations, so European Boating Industry and ICOMIA, and maintaining those links. But we're very lucky to have very, very good marinas with very experienced managers. So in themselves, they bring a lot to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, it must be fascinating.
It's great. It's great. It's absolutely great. Yeah, I always learn something, always, without any question. And it's not just knowledge. Sometimes it's just social skills,
Yeah, yeah. Fascinating. So were you approached for that position? How did that position come about for you?
I was very lucky. When I was working in Calera Marinas in Lanzarote, their family, it is a family owned, very successful. They just celebrated 40 years, 40th anniversary. They were great about sending me out. So they gave me a huge amount of opportunity and leeway to move internationally, to meet, to represent the company in associations. So I'm very, very grateful for that, really. I think I've had opportunities that many, many other people haven't had. And I think, sort of common sense would suggest that it's just simply by having the linguistic capacity just made it so much easier to communicate and get around. I speak French, so that's why the mini transat thing and etc. So yes.
Yeah, and you live in Spain, don't you?
In the Canaries.
Yeah, in the Canaries. So you speak Spanish as well?
Yeah, my children laugh at me every day. And I have to say, living in a foreign country where, even if you have a basic understanding or even a sort of intermediate understanding, it's just embarrassment every day. You put your foot in it all the time. There's never a day go by. The thing is, you have to force yourself to speak, otherwise you don't advance.
Yeah.
But you will always embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember working with a fabulous Italian in London when I was in the hotel times, and one time he said to me, "I haven't." Somebody came into the office and he said, "I haven't seen you for donkey's months."
Okay, that's what I'm doing all the time.
That's a perfect example, and I loved it. So
So that's a sweet one. Is when you really put your foot in it that it gets bad. Anyway, I won't even go there because it's cringeworthy.
So you do talk about on your LinkedIn. You mentioned a phrase that's nautical translation. Can you explain to me what you mean by that?
Well, that's very, very simple. So as you know, there's a vocabulary that comes with our industry, isn't there?
Mm.
And it's fairly specific. And so I do translation just because, speaking the languages and because that was part of my job. So I just offer that service from time to time to impress to companies that need it. I think with any translation, that has that very sort of idiosyncratic sort of language, you need to have the capacity to understand and translate it properly. So that's all that is.
Yeah. And so Empire Marina, you started in 2019. Why did you see a gap in the market, that was a need there that you thought, I can do that, and that's how it started? Or did something happen that you thought, oh, okay, I need to do this? Or
that's a generous interpretation.
What was it?
Well, several things actually. I think I found myself shifting in terms of my beliefs. Several things happened. There were, as you know, particularly where we were, and I'm sure where you are as well. You meet sailors who inspire you. So many people come through with profound stories or profound levels of humility despite all of their achievements. And again, this was a Jimmy Cornell event. He was running the Atlantic Odyssey. And one of the boats was Sea Dragon, Pangea Explorations, I think, now in it. And this was a campaign being run by Emily Penn. I don't know if you've come across her. She's, a very impressive woman who's done an awful lot, and sailor who's done an awful lot in the realm of marine sustainability. So she turns up with her boat, and all the women have these T-shirts on, emblazoned across their breast. Yeah, so starting in Empire Marina was a choice made over a really long time, actually. Lots of reasons for it, partly because I felt that, I was, commercial and marketing manager for these 3 marinas. But it's become a bit sort of samey day after day. And you get to a point in your life, I would imagine, particularly as a woman, when your children are reaching a certain age and you think, my goodness, is this my future? Am I going to be doing this until I die? And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to do something for myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to progress, and it's not going to be a satisfying future for me. And we've done a few things. We ran a really nice event every year, which was timed with the World Oceans Day and World Environment Day. And we brought together all of the operators in the marina and also a whole load of conservation groups and activities, and put that on for children and their families. And it was a wild success. People came year after year. They loved it. We, built those connections with the environmental groups around us. We learned a lot, because unless you connect with them, you don't understand really much about the local biodiversity, about the threats, the sensibilities of the area, what you need to do as a boater to be able to prevent damage to these, and the actions that you can very easily put into place, about collecting marine debris, that sort of thing. So that was something that I wanted to do more of, but there wasn't really the sort of space to do that. I wanted to work in sustainability. It wasn't that I saw an opportunity; it was that I saw a need, and something that marinas could really do with little effort, but with potentially quite an important impact.
Yeah. So you've started this company to get that message across to marinas.
Yeah. So one of the interesting boats, we were talking earlier about how boats can come in all shapes and sizes, and with very influential people on board that really have an impact, on you over their lives. Particularly where we were, we had a lot of people doing round the world circumnavigations, doing regattas and races, and really having very profound adventure. One of these boats was part of Jimmy Cornell's Atlantic Odyssey. And these girls came in. It was a boat of girls doing an all-female expedition, And they had across their t-shirts emblazoned this copper feel. And I was like, goodness gracious, that's a bit outre, even for sailors.
Yeah.
And what they were actually doing was trying to promote early detection of breast cancer.
Right.
They'd done all these studies beforehand, taking hair samples and blood samples to detect whether they had forever chemicals in their blood. And they were going to open these during the trip, during the Atlantic crossing, and discuss, what aspects of their lives might have led them to be in touch with forever chemicals. They were also doing plastic sampling along the way. And I thought, this is marvelous. Having this discussion amongst women, in a safe space with people who were already, leaders and, impressive characters in themselves. One of them also chatted to these people was Dr. Gemma Jambeck, who at the end of that, she'd been doing some very extensive studies on plastic in the ocean. When the boat reached the other side in the Caribbean, this news came out, this was 2015, about the 8 million tons of plastic entering the ocean. This was her work. And that, we still use that figure, even though we know that it's now a lot more, sort of more in the region of 13 and upwards. We still quote that 8 million because it was such a profound piece of news at that time. And this was that very person, who'd released that news herself, was part of that team. So this is sort of an idea of the caliber of people who were doing this trip together, dedicating their time to studying more about toxins in our environment and how we are vulnerable to that.
Wow. So you've actually not culminated because you're still doing this business, but you've produced a piece of information and documentation that's incredibly useful to mariners now, which you've called the Introduction to Sustainability for Mariners. And we've been talking at this World Mariners Conference, which is where we are right now, a lot about sustainability. And that document is very detailed and goes into a lot of information for mariners. What do you think are some key points you'd like to I guess, put into this podcast so that they can just understand a few ways that mariners can work towards sustainability and helping our environment?
Well, thank you, Nicky. It's a big document and covers a lot of topics because it covers everything. Sustainability is part of everything now. We absolutely can't deny it. And the more you look at it, the wider it is. And so, I've spoken to others about extending it with more topics because there is so much to include in there. I'd probably start by saying that it's a collaborative document. So, part of the work is mine, and a lot of the content comes from other members of the industry who are similarly passionate and probably far more expert in their particular realms, and have put some very nice pieces together. So, really, really pleased with that. And I think, very fortunate that people are so collaborative. I think social sustainability is a big one because it's something that we sort of veer away from a little bit, particularly the nature of the industry being sort of white male predominant.
Yes.
So that's an issue. Learning how to perceive that in your company. I think so. There are some guidelines on that. I think, that's just some very, very basic steps. If you've never considered perhaps, the patterns in the way in which, you do recruitment or you push people into certain roles, or all your women are either, reception or cleaners or whatever, then you might not be aware of how
the subconscious bias is kicking in. Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Esteban Biondi, who is part of RecCom of Piank. I don't know if you know of them. Probably, yes.
Yeah.
He wrote a fantastic piece on marina design, which is very comprehensive. It's almost a sort of summary of the paper that Piank released recently. And he was very generous in sharing all that information, certainly for free, but dedicating his time. And he also helped me with the Spanish translation because, it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So his piece is very, very good. And of course, from a design point of view, circular economy starts with design, doesn't it?
Mm.
So when we look at every aspect, both socially and environmentally, then, you start up with a completely different picture, completely different set of objectives. And if you can mold your vision to that, then, far more resilience in the future.
So give me a practical example of changing a design element of a marina that can accommodate that sustainability change.
I think it's first recognizing, the context. What have you got in the marina? What do people need? What are the circumstances? What do the local people require to be able to move forwards? What could you add to the local community as a marina? Are you going to be able to offer work for the locals? Do they need training to be able to access those jobs? Are there natural assets in that space, such as blue carbon spaces that could certainly be protected, but more used beneficially, perhaps for wave mitigation, and certainly for all of the various opportunities that they provide in terms of ecosystem services. Using space sensibly, recognizing, and again, it's about understanding the basics of it, recognizing all the natural assets you have that are going to provide benefits for you as a marina in terms of protecting the space that you're in, and also keeping the water clean, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's been a massive focus of this conference that we're at the moment, because we as boaters love our environment, and it's actually incredibly important for us to therefore work towards preserving us. And also, even though compared to shipping, for example, we have a very, very low impact on the environment, say on a fuel consumption basis, something like that. But the image of our, fast power boats going through the water is one that the consumer sees and sees us therefore as a bad influence upon the environment. So I think just taking papers like yours and really exploring how we as an industry can make a difference, because we can. There's so many little things we can do. In our Freedom Boat Club, for example, at our marinas, I'd love to send everybody out and say, every time you see a bit of plastic, pick it up, bring it back, we'll deal with it, because just taking every boater going out and taking a little bit of plastic out of the water every time they go is going to make a massive, massive difference to the world. Just a little bit of action from everybody. So our consumers now look at us differently. They don't just look at the price of a marina. They look at how we're behaving. I know you're a specialist in sort of corporate social responsibility and so on and so forth. So how do you like marinas would you like to see them moving forward in that space?
Well, I think, a nice basis to look at what works. Case studies. Recently, we put an article together on family values. So this is how family marinas can become more resilient because of their longevity, because they have that institutional memory, because they have reached out to their community, either because they've had to through confrontation or conflict, or because they need to, because there's a sort of quid pro quo opportunity there. They've developed this sort of cultural capital. They've become synonymous with their space. And I think we can look a lot to how they operate within their community. That's one example. And so other examples are Boat Folk, which we very, very impressive chain of marinas in the UK. They've been working with local conservation groups and foundations, and they've done a huge amount of work, which is very impressive, protecting local species, creating little underwater or islands where they can observe and test the quality of their water and how different species can clean the water. There are already many examples. As everyone has said, I think during this conference, I don't know how many times, we don't need to invent the wheel.
Yeah. People
are doing things very well all by themselves already.
Yeah.
And so I think, the starting point is to see what works and why it works.
Yeah. Well, we saw a great example at Marina de Lagos yesterday, where they've put these, they're very simple. They're cages, open cages that they filled with oyster shells and so on, and they place them underneath the marina pontoons. And that provides an environment for fish to be able to grow, their tiny little fish, and have some protection, some space to be protected from predators to allow them to get to a certain size that they then have the ability to escape that predator if they need to. And they saw results within like 2 months of putting those in, because they had local universities involved in studying that and so on and so forth. So I think that's something really exciting that marinas can do, that can collaborate with universities and schools and studies to allow their environments to be, explored and measured, to see what we're doing and how we can improve. I mean, we are a fish-friendly marina. Both of our marinas are called fish-friendly marinas, and we have set up those environments under pontoons and so on, so that nursery is created, if you like. And it's always lovely when the kids come down and they see so many fish in our marina. And I guess they're a little bit surprised because they're expecting it to be a bad water environment, but it's not. It's actually, we're actively making it a great environment for our wildlife. So yes, it's a really interesting space, and we've got a long, long way to go. But it's a very exciting, I guess, it's actively doing things about it, isn't it?
Well, I think, as you say, we can learn a lot from scientific and research institutes. One of the projects that we're doing is quite similar to that, using different types of sensors, working with satellites, and seeing how we can help fill the ocean observation gap, where, particularly in very intensely occupied coastal areas, not that much information is being recovered. So marinas could potentially be, a very stable and scalable network of data providers in that respect. And that would, of course, help marinas to understand their environment, not just through the very basic sort of sea level or temperature, but also perhaps acoustics. Let's learn about how underwater noise might be affecting the local environment. Let's involve everybody. So, the divers can be doing sort of biological work. They can track species together. They can diversify their product range by having a more eco excursion for their divers. We're definitely excited about involving the civic side of it, so the local population can come in and do all sorts of things. One of our marinas is working with a research institute to detect areas of microalgae production in the water. And so they have kits, so their boaters can either contribute with observations, or they can pick up one of these kits from the marine office, take a sample and bring it back. So that's where boaters are fantastic. They have this mobility. They can get out to the florations of these microalgae areas, send these back to the lab, and then the lab can understand where they've come from, why they're being developed, track them, of course. So it's a very valuable contribution, and something that boaters are interested in. If they see this discoloration of the water, they want to know what's going on. And so if they can join to sort of be recruited as part of the team to sort that, or at least understand it, then all the better.
Oh, I love that. So you're actually making a big difference. How does that feel for you? You are making a big difference to the environment, to marina operations. That must feel good.
Well, I think we are making a small difference, but there's so much desire, I think, from the part of the marina community to do a lot as soon as we can. So, it's definitely not me against the world. It's all of us, all flowing in the right direction. I don't think there's anyone. I haven't come across anyone who's not inspired by this topic. So it's not difficult to want to move forwards.
Yeah. So in terms of moving forwards, where do you see Innova Marina going in the future?
Ooh. Living for today, I don't know. I absolutely don't know. I would just very much like to continue in the vein that it's going. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities. As I said, we've got this project coming up with Transeo that's starting next year. It's a 4-year project. The research guys and girls that we're working with are very excited about more possibilities. So it's going to be a lot of work. I'm looking forward to it. And I think, for now, it's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to the next conference, of course, which is one of our members who are hosting it. And I mean, I don't know, everything we've seen in this conference has been, inspiring. Today was extraordinary from a digital, I mean, that's another entire world of developments. So we're not stopping still.
No, No, we're not. Well, we can't, because as we know, in any business now, if we stop still, we die.
Yeah.
So as mariners, we've really got to move. I mean, so many things in the marina world have changed: the size of the boats, the quality of the boats, there's the demand of the customers, the transience of customers rather than being just permanent customers, and I think that. Other industries are leading the way in some areas. Car industry, for example, is leading the way in some areas, and then hotels are leading the way in other areas of what we do as well. So I think if we absorb some of that information from other industries as well, I think that is a way that we as mariners can progress and grow and adapt to that new customer that exists, because COVID, of course, brought us a whole bunch of new customers that had never been boaters before. And all of a sudden they've got these big boats and they're saying, what do I do with this thing? So they need our experience to help them take care of it, to look after it, to be boaters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very exciting being in the marina industry at the moment. I think we've got a long way to go,
but a lot of exciting avenues available.
Yeah. And conferences like we've been at this week. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love that the marina industry, the ICOMIA conferences bring people from all around the world together, and we're all mates. We're good friends.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this conference.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It really, really is. It's as I, various people, you meet them in the first day and they say, oh, just so happy all I've been doing is hugging lovely people.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. It's
an absolutely fantastic industry to work in. It really, really, really is.
Yeah. I said to Carol Fulford from World Mariners magazine, so what's your favourite part so far? And she said, all the people arriving on the first day and hugging me.
Well, there you go. Another perfect example.
Yeah, exactly because I was talking to Elsa, who's in the tech
Falco.
space. Yeah, and she's from Falco in Paris, and she was saying, how lovely everybody is in this industry, and I said, I think it's got something to do with the fact that we're working with water all the time. So we're generally happy people, because we're working in beautiful environment. They don't put boats in ugly places. So this conference is a perfect example. We're in the Algarve of Portugal, for goodness sake. And we're going, okay, this is tough.
I know, what's not to like?
I know, right? Yeah.
We're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So I think moving that out into the wider community, creating opportunities for people to be involved, using ocean literacy as a tool to reaching out and allowing people to have more contact and more understanding of the ocean environment is essential. And obviously we're in the ocean decade, so there's a lot of energy going into that at the moment. But it's definitely, we love it. We know we love it. We know everyone, in it loves it. So it needs to be shared, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, it's been lovely talking to you, Melanie. I really appreciate you giving some of your knowledge and your time to us today. Anything you'd like to share with anybody that you think might be coming into the industry or considering coming into our industry that you think is important that they need to know?
Well, as you were saying earlier, there's so many different realms of this industry. There's so many possibilities. Reach out as soon as possible. Get in touch with us. TransEurope is 80 marina strong. We've got, there are jobs coming up all of the time. Very eager to welcome new talent. So, anything we can do, there we are.
Fantastic. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you very much, Nicky.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you on the water soon.